I want this video to feel like a visual diary where everything starts out completely normal, then slowly turns strange in a way no one could have expected. It's a cool afternoon in the United States, with the last light of day falling across a bike path that runs along the edge of the woods. From my POV, I can only see the handlebars, my gloves, the road beneath me, and the rows of trees rushing past. The atmosphere is quiet, with nothing but the sound of tires rolling over the pavement and my steady breathing. But as I pass a patch of wild grass near a drainage ditch, an unusual blue flicker appears in the bushes. It doesn't look like a bike light, doesn't look like a phone, and definitely doesn't look like anything ordinary someone might have dropped. It's a round object, glowing faintly, lying still, yet somehow feeling like it's alive. I stop the bike, put down the kickstand, and walk closer. Beneath the damp leaves is a pale blue egg, its surface marked with faint glowing veins, like breathing circuitry. I reach out and touch it. It's warm, not just sun-warmed, but the kind of steady warmth that feels like a living creature is inside. The egg isn't very big, only about small enough to cradle in both hands. I hesitate and look around, but there's no nest, no animal tracks, nothing at all that explains why it's there. In the end, curiosity wins. I wrap my jacket around the egg, place it in the front basket of my bike, and pedal home as fast as I can. From that moment on, my ordinary little house began turning into an improvised care station for a mysterious creature. At first, I placed the egg on a thick towel inside a clear plastic box set in the corner of my desk. I searched all over the internet, reading about how to incubate bird eggs and reptile eggs, and bought a digital thermometer, a mini heat lamp, soft towels, small syringes, specialty milk for newborn animals, and finally ground feed. No one could tell me what to do with a glowing blue egg, so everything was trial and error. I monitored the temperature all night, waking up over and over to check whether its glow was getting brighter or dimmer. Sometimes, in the middle of the dark room, the egg gave off a faint blue halo, just enough to tint the towel underneath. I started talking to it as if it could hear me. On the second day, the egg trembled ever so slightly. On the third day, a small crack appeared on its surface. I was so excited that my hands shook while holding the camera. Then a piece of shell broke away, and from inside emerged a tiny little head, pinkish, with big black eyes, soft ears, and a damp tuft of yellow fur plastered to its forehead. The tiny creature was so weak it could barely lift its head without leaning against the edge of the shell. It opened its mouth and made a small sound, more like a strange call than the cry of any newborn animal I had ever seen. That moment did not feel like a scientific discovery. It felt like nature had accidentally delivered a secret into my room. I named it Chuka. The first few days of raising Chuka were a string of adorable chaos. It was far too weak to feed itself. I had to grind its food into a very fine powder, mix it with milk, draw it into a small syringe, and slowly feed it tiny amounts at a time. At first, it didn't know how to swallow, and milk would collect around its mouth, so I had to wipe it away with a soft cloth. It slept a lot, curled up in a towel, occasionally squirming and placing one tiny foot against my finger. I tracked every little change. Its eyes opened wide, its ears started to stiffen, its neck grew stronger, and it learned how to stretch itself and seek out warmth. That was when the video started to become very engaging, because Chuka changed a little every day. Viewers would want to come back to see what had grown, what it could do now, and whether it had become even cuter. Then came the stage when its fur started growing in. At first, there were only thin yellow strands around its head and back, but day by day they became thicker. Chuka's face gradually revealed a very mischievous look, shiny black eyes, rosy cheeks, longer pointed ears, and most noticeably, a tail that was beginning to move with real agility. It no longer just lay in its towel. It started crawling out of its nest, sliding across the table, sneaking under my hand, lightly biting the tip of the syringe, and making clumsy but incredibly fast little jumps. One time when I reached out to steady it, my fingertips suddenly tingled, like I had touched static electricity. I assumed it was just the dry air, but a few days later, it happened again. Whenever Chuka got excited, tiny crackling sparks flickered around its cheeks, almost invisible unless you were paying close attention. That was the moment the story moved to a new level. Chuka was not just unusual, it had abilities. Once Chuka's fur had fully grown in, it looked almost like a tiny yellow electric creature, extremely fast, endlessly curious, and always giving the impression that its brain was moving faster than everything around it. It loved chasing anything that moved. Patches of sunlight on the floor, hoodie strings, reflections from a digital clock, even droplets of water on the window. It absolutely loved baths. At first I was scared that water might make it shock itself, but the opposite turned out to be true. Chuka adored warm water. It would sit in a small tub, splashing water everywhere. Its fur slicked flat before puffing up again once I dried it off. After every bath, it would tear through the living room like crazy, sliding across the hardwood floor, jumping onto the couch, darting under chairs. Then circling back to zap my hand with a tiny tingling shock, almost like a smug little joke. Chuka's mischievous nature created endless vlog moments that were incredibly engaging. It noticed mosquitoes before I did. Late at night, when everything seemed calm, it would suddenly lift its head, perk up both ears, and lock its eyes on an insect flying near the bedside lamp. Then snap, a tiny crackle, and the mosquito would drop. Some nights it would stand out in the backyard, watching fireflies and bugs circling the porch light, its tail twitching, its whole body trembling slightly before releasing a small electric spark. It did not hunt because it was hungry. It hunted because it enjoyed it, like some instinctive game. Little by little, the house changed around Chuka too. I turned one corner of the kitchen into its own food prep station. In the garage, there was a box filled with toys, softballs, towels, a water bowl, and a tiny blanket. In the backyard, there was a low bath basin and a sun-warmed towel set aside just for it. The living room started collecting little scratches on the couch cushions, wet paw prints across the wooden floor, and sometimes the desk lamp would flicker whenever Chuka got too excited. The longer I lived with it, the more it felt like I was not raising a pet at all, but sharing a house with a living bundle of energy that knew how to joke around. Of course, there were troublesome moments too. Chuka chewed on charging cables. Chuka jumped onto the kitchen counter and knocked over its bowl of feed. Chuka hid inside the laundry basket. Chuka even waited in the bathroom and gave my wrist a tiny electric zap just as I reached for a towel. One night during a heavy rainstorm, thunder rolled outside and the power in the house kept flickering. Chuka was more restless than usual. From my POV, I could only see my hands checking the windows, candles, and flashlight. Then the power went out for real. In the darkness, Chuka gave off a faint electric glow around its cheeks, just enough for me to see it sitting in the middle of the hallway, ears standing straight up as if it were guarding the house. That was the first time I truly felt that it was not just mischievous, but caring too. You know, when I sat down on the floor, it walked over, rubbed against my hand, and released a very small spark. Not to tease me, but almost as if it were trying to comfort me. By the end of the story, Chuka had become part of the rhythm of the house. In the morning, it waited for breakfast. At noon, it stretched out in the sunlight by the glass door. In the afternoon, it followed me into the backyard to bathe or play with the hose. At night, it patrolled around the bedside lamp to hunt insects. There were incredibly ordinary moments too. My hand setting down a fresh bowl of feed while Chuka rushed over to sniff it. Me drying its fur with a towel while it burrowed into it, just like when it was little. Me sitting at my desk working while it dozed off beside me. Static electricity occasionally making the fur on its head stand up. As the story went on, it relied less on the mystery of what is it, and more on the feeling of what is it like to live with it, which made the audience grow emotionally attached. The ending should feel warm and naturally open the door for what comes next. Early one morning, I opened the backyard door, and Chuka dashes out onto the dew-covered grass. Then it turns back to look at me, its ears twitching, its cheeks faintly red, its yellow fur glowing in the sunlight. It is no longer the mysterious blue egg hidden in the bushes. It is Chuka, the strange little creature that turned an ordinary house in America into a place filled with sounds, paw prints, crackling sparks, and small daily joys. And even though I still do not know where it came from, maybe something more important is true now. It has a home.
You're hungry, aren't you? Chip! Just a second. Chip! Chip! Coming. Chip! Chip! Chip!